This is Wolves Weekly. I'm Al Della Chica. On September 26th, Hurricane Helene made landfall on the Florida Panhandle. Over the next 24 hours, Helene left a path of destruction that stretched from the Gulf Coast to eastern Tennessee. Hundreds are dead. Thousands were displaced. Hometowns and roads were devastated, and millions were left without power. We were not spared here in Newberry, as heavy rain and high winds brought down trees, damaged property, and left thousands without electricity for several days. In a few moments, we will bring you the highlights from Saturday's game against Mars Hill, and later in the program, we will take a look at other news from Newberry athletics. But we could not let this moment pass without chronicling how our campus and community have responded to what happened last week. We're going to hear from campus and community leaders, and our correspondents will report on how the people of Newberry College have weathered the storm and its aftermath. All this is coming up on this special edition of Wolves Weekly. On September 28th, the Newberry Wolves were to have faced the University of Virginia at Wise on the home turf at Setzler Field, but Hurricane Helene led to the game's postponement. There was some brief hope it could be played Sunday the 29th, but when the impact of the storm proved too much, the game was finally canceled. Once things on campus started back toward normal, the Wolves resumed practice and prepared to take on their next opponent, the Mars Hill Lions. Mars Hill faced its own challenges coming into Saturday's game against the Wolves. Their campus is about 15 miles north of Asheville, a city hit especially hard by Helene. The Lions game against Wingate on the 28th was canceled, and Saturday's game, originally scheduled for 7 p.m., was moved up to 1 p.m. so that the team could get back home while daylight was still out. In their last game, on September 21st, the Wolves had finally gotten the season's first win in a 50-20 defeat of Tusculum. However, the Lions of Mars Hill have long been a formidable opponent. Since 1974, Newberry had played 46 games against Mars Hill and had only won 13 of them. And even though the Wolves had shown promising signs in this season's previous 3 games and were ready to go, it was a group of hungry Lions that showed up at Setzler Field. Paul Fisher has this report.
The Newberry Wolves hosted the Mars Hill Lions. With last week's conference matchups canceled, both teams were itching for a win. Newberry College extended a special thanks to the service workers, kitchen staff, and first responders who helped to get campus back in order in the Hurricane Helene aftermath. Members were asked to be honorary captains in the coin toss before the game. Mars Hill won the toss and kicked to the Wolves. The Lions defense had a good series, and Reed Sharpia completed 1 of 3 passes before the Wolves were forced to punt. The Lions got the ball back and immediately drove down the field, and in 4 plays were able to score on a 43-yard pass from quarterback J.R. Martin to Simeon Thompson. The Wolves then started at their own 25-yard line. They put together a good drive with Sharpia rushing twice. On a roll-up to his left, Sharpia fumbled the ball at the 10-yard line and Mars Hill recovered. On a big third-down play, Jonathan Sexton and Rodney Wright combined for a 3-yard sack, forcing the Lions to punt. The Newberry Wolves fought to get downfield and were able to string together 4 positive plays, but ultimately were unable to get deep into Mars Hill territory. An incomplete pass and a sack set up a 41-yard field goal. With just over 4 minutes left in the first quarter, the score was 7-3. The following Newberry drive spilled over into the second quarter and ended with a 33-yard field goal by Bryce Early. This closed the gap and gave the Lions only a 7-6 lead. Back-to-back losses of yardage resulted in a 3rd and 14 for Mars Hill. Number 7, Jari Brigman, came up with a 4-yard sack. A penalty was thrown on Mars Hill for intentional grounding, and this set up a punt. The Wolves took about a minute off the clock and went 3 and out before the Lions got the ball back. Mars Hill traveled 80 yards in 8 plays and scored on a dive from the 1-yard line by J.R. Martin. The extra point was good, giving Mars Hill the 14-6 lead. The Wolves took the ball and took their time getting downfield. On a combination of passes and runs, they drove to the Mars Hill 18-yard line. From there, an 18-yard sack by Kobe Haynes set up a long 53-yard field goal. Bryce Early made the kick and was 4 yards shy of a school record, which was set in 1985.
3 yards! Give him 3!
On the following series, The Mars Hill Lions drove the ball effectively. J.R. Martin completed 4 of his 5 passes, but it was a 15-yard roughing the passer call that extended the drive for the Lions and allowed them to score. On the first play of the next drive, quarterback Reed Sharpia threw an interception to Courtney Slocum, and this set up a 23-yard field goal for the Lions. At halftime, the score was 24-9. The remainder of the game was fairly one-sided, as the Mars Hill Lions shut out the Wolves for the entire second half. The Lions opened the third quarter with a long drive that consisted of 12 plays, 75 yards, took nearly 6 minutes off the clock. They scored on a 10-yard pass to Malik Laurent. The Wolves got the ball, but a big sack halted the drive and forced a punt. The Newberry defense put up a great stop, forcing a punt on a 3-and-out. The Wolves' offense took the field, this time led by quarterback Isaiah Whiteside. Whiteside rushed for 16 yards and completed 1 of 3 passes before being forced to punt. The Lions then took the half of the fourth quarter and used 12 plays before punting back to the Wolves. Newberry took the field and went for it on 4th and 2, but were unable to get a first down. This helped set up a field goal for the Lions late in the fourth quarter. Neither team scored after this. The final score was Mars Hill 34, the Newberry Wolves 9. Reporting for NCTV, Paul C. Fisher.
And with that, the Wolves take their 3rd loss of the season and are 1-1 in conference play. This also means the Wolves have yet to win a home game this season. Quarterback Reed Sharpia completed 11 of 23 passes for 143 yards, and kicker Bryce Hurley made 3 field goals, including 1 for 53 yards. He's now 7 for 8 on field goal attempts this season. The Wolves will be away for the next 2 games, facing Lenore-Rhine next weekend, and then playing Catawba on October 19th. Saturday's game was also marked by the moment in several ways, an observance of Hispanic Heritage Month, originally scheduled for the September 28th game, took place on Saturday. In addition, Newberry College offered free admission and hospitality suite access to employees of the City of Newberry and of Newberry Electric Cooperative, to local law enforcement, and to employees of the companies that provide food service, security, and maintenance services for Newberry College. And one more note, some Mars Hill students and their families suffered heavy losses in the storm and are facing sudden financial hardship that could keep them from finishing their degrees. Before Saturday's game, Newberry College sent out an invitation for supporters to donate to the Mars Hill Scholarship Fund. More information is available in the news section of the Newberry College website under Hurricane Helene Campus Updates. Wolves Weekly will return in a moment.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. Remember the best planned 90 minutes of your life? Or that surprise party for your parents' golden anniversary? You get the golden planning. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
This is a special edition of Wolves Weekly. I'm Al Della Chica. When an emergency comes to campus, there are many things that the leaders of Newberry College have to think about. Foremost is the safety and well-being of more than 1,400 students, especially those who live in on-campus housing. What happens when the power goes out? How do you keep students fed? How do you keep them safe? In the first of our special reports about Helene's aftermath, we learn how a college responds when disaster strikes.
Well, my first thought was I was kind of shocked by all the down power lines and the trees. It was very devastating. It's very surreal to see a campus a few days before it's bright, sunny green and everything's blooming, and then the next day everything's on its side on the ground. So it was kind of like a okay moment. There's things we have to do, and so that's where I immediately jumped into that emergency response mode. Essentially, start saying, okay, what do we need to do to make sure the students are safe, they're in a good spot, they're inside the residence halls, do they have food to be able to eat, can they access the basic needs that they have. Obviously, we can't control power because we're not a power company, but power and internet obviously being out. So what else could we do for them to kind of take their mind off of, I don't have internet, I don't have power, I can't do the basic things I'm so accustomed to doing.
Housing played a big role in the behind the scenes of what comes next. And they deserve all the respect, all the praises, because they did absolutely amazing. And it's something that we really don't touch base upon, because as students, all we saw was like, the power's out, this sucks. But for them, this is like, wow, we now need to come up with what's next.
We know that there are some students that are having some issues with some of their houses were damaged. So there's a conversation of how do we, make sure they're able to continue to have class with what they've got going on. There's going to be a lot of flexibility, from my understanding, because you can't really plan for this kind of storm. Like, you can have your basic stuff, but you don't. It's all the other things that happen afterward that you don't really prepare for. So. The biggest challenge was the communication. It's, because we rely so much on phones, text messages, social media, getting information out was innately hard originally. So that's where we kind of came together. We had a little bit of an emergency response group that came together basically starting Thursday when we canceled class, every day after that, to kind of just assess where we're at as a community. What messages need to go out? Of course, we utilize our social media, but it's also students on campus aren't getting it because they have down. So that's where we came up with the pen paper. We started putting notes on doors. We visually did checks with students in our housing, off-campus housing, the college-owned properties, and just kind of really utilizing our RAs. I would say our RAs have been rock stars in all of this, because they had to be on fire watch because of the power being out. So they're constantly just going around, just making sure everyone's okay. So it's the students help the students.
I would say the biggest challenge for me was actually stepping up into a leadership position, because for me, when I went through, let's say, a hurricane or losing power, I was always at home. And my parents were the ones that stepped up, and they made sure that I had what I needed, food, whether it be like just be comfortable at night, be somewhere where I can sleep. So to be someone that had to step up to a position and help other people, that was something new for me.
The most challenging thing, I think, was wanting to do more, but not sure what was needed at the moment.
I had a student knocking at my door, just asking me if I could take her somewhere to charge her phone. Of course. I have access to my car. I had a full tank of gas, and I know that some people were wanting to save their gas because they didn't have access to go to a gas station, or they didn't have a full tank of gas. So I was more than willing to take anyone who needed to charge their phones, which allowed me to have new conversations that I've never experienced before, get to meet people that I've never even talked to before, which was great.
We came together in a time of need, and we were able to address everything that was coming. Every hit that was coming, we were able to kind of walk through it, work through it, and make sure that, again, the number one priority is the safety of the students, safety and security. So making sure our security officers are on top of things, making sure our RAs are, our student affairs staff, and our administration, all the way up to the president, just coming together and just working through and having conversation about what is happening. I think it also goes to secondfold the resilience of our students. They don't get a lot of credit saying, hey, students in general nowadays are not viewed as being resilient, but I can honestly say the Newberry College students were resilient. They made the best of this situation. They helped clean up the campus. They helped each other. They leaned on each other. And that, I think, is the most proud moment for me, because they were able to say, we care about each other and we're going to help each other.
I think what's impressed me more was their work on Friday, being able to help with the cleanup efforts. And we've organized some folks to go around Newberry to help faculty and staff with cleanup in their yards. And that servant heart that I see in our students is really important, and I see that shining right now as students want to help and want to serve the community around us.
I feel like before this hurricane, we were all really secluded to ourselves. I mean, obviously everyone had their few little cliques. But I think now after Hurricane Helen, it's going to change the community of Newberry for the better. I think it's going to be more of a community feel, especially with Newberry College. We're talking to each other more. We're getting to know each other more. We're listening to each other's stories. So yeah, I truly believe that the community at Newberry College will change for the better, and I cannot wait to be a part of that.
Power was restored to the main campus Sunday afternoon, and Oakland Mills got its power back the next day. Classes resumed on Thursday, though some students returned home to be with their families until conditions stabilize on campus. Wolves Weekly will continue in a moment.
One scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
When the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out.
I'm relying on luck, but who knows if it'll be on my side.
When it comes to disasters and emergencies, it's not a matter of if, but when. Take control. 1. Assess your needs. 2. Make a plan. 3. Engage your support network. Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell.
This is Wolves Weekly. I'm Paul C. Fisher with our special coverage of the aftermath of Hurricane Helene and the impact on the Newberry community. When Helene struck our town, one of the largest complications was the damage that it did to our area's electrical services, disrupting the things in daily life that we often take for granted. Here to tell us about the damage Helene did to Newberry and the path to recovery is Tim Baker, the Director of Utilities for the City of Newberry. Mr. Baker, thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Could you just kind of give us an idea of some of the damages, kind of the worst parts that were hit, and what things look like from your vantage point?
Sure. When the storm originally hit, it took out transmission to both of our electrical substations. We have one on Lewis Rich Road and one in the Malahan subdivision. With our wholesale power provider, the way power is transmitted to us is through Duke Energy. They run the transmission system in this part of the state. So we had to get that transmission up, was the first thing we had to do, get our substations online. We have 6 circuits that feed out of each one of those 2 electrical substations. So we lost all of our customers. We have about 5,500 customers, and we lost them all. First thing we do is we go out and assess damage after we make sure that transmission is back up. And then we prioritize restoration. Every customer we have is important to us. But there has to be a priority in the way you reestablish that. And it's pretty typical amongst all electrical utilities. It's pretty much the same. Your critical facilities, the hospital, in most places the water plant, but here we decided to run the water plant off of a generator. Newberry College is important to us. You have a large number of students here in a very confined area. So we understand that those students, a lot of them live far away, so they may not be able to go home or find somebody to stay with for a couple of days. So Newberry College is a priority. Our industrial customers, we have a couple of food manufacturing companies that could lose a large amount of product if they're not restored very quickly. And then our commercial corridor, when people, we want to make sure that they don't lose their food so that people can go restock supplies, can get something to eat, and those sorts of things.
How much work do you think needs to be done until we have some resemblance of normal, or maybe till we're kind of back on track?
We brought in 6 mutual aid crews to assist our crew just to get the power back on. You notice there's still some roads closed in town. Everything that's on the pole doesn't belong to us. AT&T, I know they were in town on Saturday doing some restoration. Right here behind the college, Evans Street's still closed. That's a low-hanging telephone line. So there's until they come and move over to the new poles that we set. And that's typical. You generally have the electric company come in first. They replace poles and that sort of thing. And then you have the communications companies come in over the next few days.
So
I heard that we have companies that are here from pretty much all over the country, different states, maybe Alabama, some states up in the Northeast and stuff. So what does kind of the communication look like in getting everybody here, understanding what the assignment is, and just kind of coordinating all of that?
Well, the key thing is as soon as you understand that you need mutual aid, which we establish that very quickly. Once you see a couple dozen poles down, it takes 4 men about 3 hours to set a pole. And that's moving. That's just, doing as hard, working as hard as they possibly can. So once you see you have a dozen or more poles down, you really need to go ahead and make the call to mutual aid. We have a state coordinator who works for the city of Rock Hill. So we called early. So we got a lot of early resources. Some other municipal utilities waited a little bit later, and they had to wait longer for their resources to come in. But Jimmy Bagley is our state coordinator in Rock Hill. And so we make the call to him, and we initially told him, you estimate you're doing the best you can at that point. I thought we needed 2 crews to come in and help us. We ended up with 6 crews. So it grew pretty rapidly on me. One issue in that we had with this storm is it was so widespread. Usually we would get help from Lawrence and Clinton and Greenwood and other municipals that are close by. Because this storm was so broad in nature, we had to call in mutual aid crews from out of state. A lot of them had already assembled in Tallahassee. Tallahassee had taken every mutual aid crew that was available, it seems like on the East Coast, and they were slow to release them. So we did not start getting help in here till late Friday and into Saturday.
We had huge efforts from the actual community itself. Would you be able to shed a little bit of light just kind of on some of the local businesses?
Sure.
And how different people were able to help out?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say our own internal crews in the utility department, our water and sewer crewmen, they help cut trees and push trees out of the way with some of the equipment that they had. Other departments, the fire department was a huge help. Public Works, all city departments came together to work as a team. So that was critical. Local food service establishments, if guys don't work, if they don't get fed, they quit working. You know that. So. And I don't want to start naming them, but there were a lot of local food service establishments that they just said, come pick up a bag of cheeseburgers or whatever they had. And they didn't have power. So they were cooking them on black stones outside of their restaurants and things like that. So, the community really came together. I'm on the board of the YMCA. The YMCA just, I think it was Friday, did a hot dog supper. And that wasn't just for utility workers or first responders. That was for the entire community. Anybody could go get hot dogs at the YMCA. So everyone in the community has tried to pitch in and help out where they can.
Any advice or any tips or best practice for being more prepared for a situation like this?
Yeah, and I know, a lot of your viewers are college students, and the college is very important to the city. But beyond that, just people in the community, you'd be surprised how many people don't know who their electric service provider is. We have municipal providers like the city of Newberry. We provide power in the city and areas around the city. We do most of the college. The mill apartments are actually provided by Duke Energy. So that's the provider there. Other areas of the county are served by the Newberry Electric Co-op or Duke Energy or Dominion Energy, depending on where you are. So, but you should know who you're paying that bill to every month for your power. You'd be surprised how many people don't. Make sure you have food available, whatever you like to eat. The old saying was go get bread and milk. Well, that's not my favorite. So, I get Lance crackers. Lance crackers I can eat on and have something to eat. Even college students, I recommend that you have something in your room, a day or two supply, so that if everything's down, you still have some snacks, things like that. Have something to drink. We were really close. We were running the water plant on a generator. The generator failed. There were 7 trees across the road to get to the water plant. We had the entire fire department that was available. They didn't want to send all their resources out there. Public Works and our water and sewer crews just pushing those trees out of the way. And they were huge trees. This wasn't, some small trees. These things took hours to cut each tree and push them out of the way. We finally got through, to get that generator repaired and get it back online. We didn't reestablish a full electrical service to the water plant until Friday. So, have some bottled water in your room. It's not practical for a college student to have a generator. Maybe the college should consider having at least one building that has generator backup. But I have the USB chargers. I have 2 college students that are my children, and I'd rather they use them or not, I don't know. But I bought each one of them one of those USB batteries, so at least you have phone service for a certain period of time. Have a flashlight. I know we all use our iPhones now for flashlights, but in an emergency situation, if you're doing that, you're running your phone down. So stop by Harbor Freight or Walmart or somewhere and get you a flashlight to keep in your room. Just basic common sense things that you don't think about.
I appreciate you taking the time and actually being here. That is all that we have for today. We just talked about kind of the hurricane aftermath and the path to recovery. We'll be right back with more Wolves Weekly after this.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those barbecues you plan in detail for your family? Or your daughter's first costume party? It was out of this world. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
NCTV, Newberry.
This is Wolves Weekly with our special report on the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Any event of that size will complicate the life of any student, but student athletes face additional concerns. Not only do they have any other students' worries about classes and housing and how their family and friends are faring, but they have to think about practice schedules, training sessions, rescheduled games, and other obligations. But as you'll see in this report, the Wolves still found time among all the chaos to serve others in a time of need.
And then about an hour and a half later, it just did not look like Newberry. It was kind of freak, kind of sad. It was sad. You just didn't know what was out there. You didn't know what happened. Walked into campus, and the coolest thing I saw was once people kind of like the initial shock, immediately people started helping. RAD Sean Johnson was already in the circle, picking up branches and limbs. And it's funny, I kind of make a joke, like he's picking up small limbs. It looks like he's doing no damage, but like little by little, it just added up. And you saw him, and you saw the Kylie, the softball assistant coach. He was helping Mr. Sean. Everybody, like you just started seeing everybody.
Right off the bat, the biggest challenge was the cafeteria. How are we going to get students fed? And Josh Christopher and the staff at Mets really stepped up. We grabbed as many propane tanks as we could, cooked what we had in the back, cooked out on the patio, and then Josh ran down in his truck to Augusta, Georgia to grab food. So I think that was the biggest thing, is watching everybody else on campus come together.
Biggest hurdle was making sure I could get eyes on all my players, all my basketball players. We have 33 total on the team, and I needed eyes or to hear from them. If I couldn't find them, I checked in with the roommates, all that. And then once I started figuring out them, it was just like checking on Justina, Janaya, Miss Kitty, and then just whoever I see the most, that were like in the forefront of my brain, and then just checking in with the most people. That was probably my biggest hurdle, just like, is everybody okay?
That was the biggest thing, is making connections with people that can help us solve the problems that we had right up. I think we always talk about what a great culture we have here at Newberry College, and that's one of the reasons students come here. And on a daily basis, sometimes maybe you can take it for granted. You just say, well, yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way things are. But when it gets put to the test, like it did this past week, I think that's when people really shine. And you really saw the good in people come out, the willingness to help. The thing that really excited me was not only willingness to help ourselves on our own campus, but the fact that we reached out to the community, where it was going to somebody's house and helping with cleanup, going to serve meals, going to the city's recreation mobile to help, entertain kids who were out of school all week here in Newberry. Just all those things that happened just really was a testament to the students, the faculty and staff at Newberry College, where, we're going to help ourselves, but we're also going to help.
I think the culture of Newberry is what makes Newberry great, is the people. Like, I don't think you can go to another college and find the Miss Kitties, the Dr. John Lassanes, Dr. Richardson, Miss Debbie, Dana, people from Mets. Like you're not going to find people like this as a whole. Like there's always great people somewhere.
You know, one of the things the city really came through for is they had a charging station downtown, the old firehouse. That was a great pivot that they made. Parks, Recreation, Tourism came up with that idea. But that's something, on our own campus we need to think about, what kind of generators do we have? What kind of things do we need to set up in advance in case we face this kind of emergency again? And we'll do that. That's a great thing about the leadership group here. We're not going to point fingers. We're going to look at ourselves and say, hey, we had a really good response to this. We did the best we could, but what could we do better? And I think that's the beauty of working at Newberry College is no matter how well we're doing something, we're always going to look at it and say, how can we do it better?
The other thing I'll just say is I gotta give my love to Miss Kitty. I have to do that. Miss Kitty, she knows she's one of my rocks, and like I don't have family out here, but when my power did go out, she opened her doors, and when I got to her house, I was not the only one there, and it just speaks to her. She's my earthly angel.
There's good in everyone, Sometimes it's easy to get jaded.
I just thank everybody that's been so helpful, incredible. It just shows how connected this campus is, and if everybody stays connected, not just in the near future, just how dangerous this campus can be in a great way. If everybody sticks together, I think everybody can achieve things that they didn't think they could do.
The Wolves' response in the wake of Helene led to a special honor last week when all student athletes at Newberry College were named South Carolina Army National Guard Players of the Week. The Wolves were commended for how they overcame hardships from Hurricane Helene, helped clean up the campus, and assisted with service projects around Newberry. Athletics Director Sean Johnson said, quote, "I'm so proud of our student athletes and their willingness to restore their campus and their community." Wolves Weekly will continue in a moment. Welcome back to Wolves Weekly. Along with Paul Fisher, let's get to the scoreboard and get you caught up with all the action that did take place over the past week. Although some games were canceled because of Hurricane Helene, many teams were back in action by midweek. On Wednesday, both the men's and women's soccer teams returned to action, playing against Limestone in Gaffney. The women's team posted its first loss of the season in a 2-1 defeat by the Saints. The men's team fared no better, losing 8-0. The teams played at home on Saturday against Lenore-Rhine. The women lost a hard-fought match against Lenore-Rhine 2-1, while the men won 1-0, shutting the Bears out for the first time since 2004.
And the Wolves field hockey team is on the road again, playing Mount Olive in North Carolina on September 28th. They posted their first loss of the season, losing 4-1 to the Trojans. The team's next games against Lincoln Memorial and Converse were postponed due to the hurricane. The 6-1 Wolves will face the Coker Cobras Tuesday night in Hartsville. Then they will travel to Greenwood to face the Lander Bearcats Saturday afternoon.
In cross country, both the men's and women's teams finished fourth at the Newberry Invitational Run Saturday morning at Johnson Farm here in Newberry. Freshman Addie Davis finished fifth over the women's 5-kilometer course, while Tyler Shoemate finished 10th over the 8-kilometer men's course. Sophomore Kaylee Giel posted an 11th place finish in the women's race, and sophomores Drew Benson and Jonah Winland finished 17th and 20th for the men. The Johnson Farm course will host the South Atlantic Conference Championships on October 26th.
And although the start of the softball and baseball seasons are still months away, both teams recently gave back to the Newberry community. A few days before Hurricane Helene, both teams took time to provide a special day for a young group of people. Correspondent Cornelia Rukoska was there.
The Newberry baseball and softball teams partnered to host the Screaming Eagles special needs team for a benefit baseball game.
Newberry does an exceptional job with the Screaming Eagles, just the culture you guys have here. It's a natural interaction.
No matter how hard our day might be, there's a lot of people going through a lot worse things and tougher things. But to share this night with these guys, the Screaming Eagles, and with our guys, I think it kind of does that for our team, that there's a lot bigger issues to deal with than not getting a hit or not throwing a strike. So I think our guys do a great job. I mean, this being the 10th year, the returners kind of know what this is about. So it's a great event, and I'm just so fortunate and lucky that we're able to put it on each and every year.
The young people and their families were thankful to Newberry baseball and softball teams and their coaches for helping make this a memorable day. Kornelia Rutkowska, NCTV Sports.
And that's the latest updates from Newberry Athletics. Remember that you could always find news and scores of all of Newberry's teams at newberrywolves.com. You can also see complete season schedules, find out how to get tickets and merchandise, and so much more, all at newberrywolves.com.
And next weekend, the Wolves will hit the road for Hickory, North Carolina. They'll face Lenore Rhine in the battle for the Bishop's Trophy. And in the last 50 years, Newberry is 24-26 against LR and lost 24-10 in their previous meeting last October. And Paul, it is always a challenge for the Wolves to go up there. That is a very hostile atmosphere.
They're a good team.
LR is always perennially a good team, and it looks like the road to a championship might go through Hickory once again.
Right.
Coach Knight, after the game against Mars Hill, said that, we had a good practice. We had a good week. He was a little kind of questionable as to what happened to the team. They came out a little flat, and he admitted that. He said, that's on me. And that was, for a coach to say that's stepping up and taking responsibility. He said, we're going to fix it. So how do you fix it against a team like LR? That is a challenge going up there. Right now, we might not even know who the starting quarterback is.
Right. What I'm noticing is that the Wolves are doing a really good job of being able to drive down the field. They're really struggling when they get into the red zone to finish the drive, to actually get into the end zone. And so I'm not sure what changes are going to be made. I think we might look at maybe a quarterback position and seeing where they're at with that. But both Reed Sharpia, Isaiah Whiteside, they've played in every single game so far this season. So anytime that it's late in the game, they'll throw the backup one in and also just get some reps for them. I don't know. I'm hoping to see kind of what it'll be like, but I think there'll be some excitement around it.
Yeah, we will, and that's the good news. The coach does have two potentially starting quarterbacks, some top-of-the-line quarterbacks. And that game against Lenore Rhine is scheduled to start at 1 p.m. on Saturday. Jimmy Coggins and I will have the call and all the action for you right here on Flow Sports.
And this right here concludes our special edition of Wolves Weekly. I'm Paul C. Fisher.
And I'm Al Della Chica. Thanks for watching, and join us next time for more Wolves Weekly.